All right, welcome to Behind the Scenes. Today in studio, we have Marcelle from the Youngstown Historical Society of Industry and Labor. Marcelle, thank you for coming down here today. So why don't you tell our viewers how you got involved and where you got your start in this project, this organization?
Well, I actually volunteered there when I was a graduate student or an undergraduate student, so in the 1990s. Then I went away for my PhD, came back. Eventually, they were looking for someone. I had been teaching at YSU in a part-time capacity since 1998, and I expressed interest. I had been working as an executive director for a museum up in Aurora, Ohio, near Geauga Lake Park.
Okay.
And I applied when the job came open, and I was fortunate enough to be selected.
Always been a history buff?
Yes. Yes, always.
And what part of history is your favorite?
Well, that's hard. That's like asking a parent, which is your favorite child. But my specialty is colonial America. I look at loyalists, so I do loser history.
Okay.
But I do women's studies, women's history. I really enjoy doing that, sharing that kind of information with people who are not familiar with the evolution of rights for women and minorities that have occurred in the last 50 years.
Yeah, and we travel a ton, and my favorite thing to do when we're in different parts of the country is to look into the local history, and it's the stories that could be told in the different eras. I mean, the American Revolution was just a great time to pay attention to what was happening and founding of the country and all that kind of stuff. So our area played a pretty significant role in the evolution of our economy and all of that. So there's a lot of story to tell here. Do you find a lot of travelers flock to this area for what that represents?
We actually do. We're kind of on the bus tourism route for the Midwest, and a lot of the people coming from the Midwest are stopping in our area because we have a similar historical past, and so it's relatable, our story of industry, labor, production of coal, those kinds of things, labor background, those are very familiar, and so they travel across the country, stopping at various places so that they can visit these heritage sites.
Now, do you work a lot with the Tourism Bureau?
We don't. Okay. Sometimes if they contact us, we will work with them. We are attached to the university. We're also part of the State Historical Society, the Ohio History Connection, and we work a lot with local students in schools, as well as students from YSU, other universities in the area. We've had interns from a variety of different places. And then any tourism that we get, we're very fortunate to get. And we work with whoever wants to come and visit us.
And you get local support as well? You get a lot of people from the area that support and come in and
we do.
Memberships.
We do. We're part of the Ohio History Connection, like I said, and they have a membership. And so if you buy a membership with the state organization, you can come and visit us for free as many times as you want. And we're in the process of developing a variety of different guided tours so that you have a reason to come back more than once because you haven't heard the whole story. And even if you spend a couple hours in our museum, we have tons of artifacts and photographs, blueprints. So we have a variety of different things that you're never going to see at all. The building was designed by Michael Graves, who's a renowned architect. That is a George Segal statue. If you go to the Butler Art, his models are actually in there, and those were based on actual steel workers. One of our volunteers found that map. It's really cool. It dates back to the 1890s, and it was designed where they etched everything out. So it's a really unique piece of history that we have there. It's our classroom. We rent it out. We hold a variety of events there. Looking at Harry Michelle there, he's our benefactor. He found the money statewide to be able to get us going. And he was really instrumental in that because he had a wide history with the area as well as working in the steel mills. This is our blueprint area. We have thousands of blueprints. We employ Val Yakimovic. He's a former 3E, I think it is. He's a former engineer with one of the steel mills, and he sets all the blueprints out, he catalogs them, he analyzes them, and then he puts them into the right drawers so that they're useful. Because there's no point in us having any of the artifacts if you can't find them and make use of them. This is part of our YSU collection. We have several different collections. That's Angelo. He came from Trinity Highway Products, and the engineers there created him using all the different parts of road safety items that are made to protect us when we get into accidents on the highway. These are artifacts in our YSU collection. We have two different main collections. One belongs to the state, and then one belongs to YSU. What's nice about this is when the state has over 55 sites in the entire state of Ohio, and so when their collecting focus is not on something that is labor or industry related, we still have the ability to accept artifacts into our collection. That's a really neat collection there. That's the Sidney Rakoff collection. He was a steel worker, and then he owned a used furniture store. During World War II, he volunteered and he fought in France and Italy. And then when he came back, he actually went to college to become a rabbi. He served as a rabbi in the area for 30 years. And then when he retired, he went back to school to Cuyahoga Community College so that he would be able to do art. And so we have a painting of his, and then we have those. And some people look at them and they say, oh, man, those are really ugly. That was actually Sidney Rakoff. He just wanted to evoke emotion. He didn't care whether you loved his work or you hated it. Right. And he wanted to evoke the human experience. And so a lot of his artwork has to do with work, with struggle, with suffering, war. So it has those kinds of themes behind it. So it's a really nice fit for us.
This episode was brought to you by Youngstown Computer, the Valley's technology company. We appreciate the loyalty and all you have shown us over the years, and it's our promise to serve all the technology needs of the Valley. Call 330-259-7278. We have both home and business services available. Everything from repair, installations, and new equipment. You can improve your Wi-Fi and have technology serve you better. Call 330-259-7278. Or you can schedule your appointment right now on youngstowncomputer.com and look for the red Book Now button.
This is really neat. This is an artifact that we received in the 80s or 90s. And it came from the company that now is known by Cleveland Cliffs. And it is a model of a continuous caster. And what's really neat is the continuous caster process replaced all the individual processes where you would put the materials in the blast furnace and then pour it, and then make an ingot, and then send it on and have it shaped. This all occurs in one machine. So it's a really neat process. Some educational artifacts there. We did a Silly Science Sunday project where we showed how many calories and how much water a steelworker would need to stay hydrated. This is part of our education collection. This is nice because students can have hands-on opportunities to try on the different safety equipment. They can touch a lot of the artifacts that would have been used in the mills, and we're not too worried about what happens to those artifacts. These are our oversized artifacts. those two items in the back are tag machines. They make metal tags that would be attached to bundles of steel that is sent out. This is a really cool monument. It's to the men working who were at Youngstown Sheet and Tube, who volunteered during World War I. And any of the names with stars next to them, they gave the ultimate. Youngstown Kitchen. Local steel mills made the steel. We had a company called Mullins Manufacturing. We had one in Warren and one in Salem. They would manufacture those kitchens, and then they would advertise them in the Bulletin, which was Youngstown Sheet and Tube's newspaper, company newsletter. And if you were a steelworker, you could actually get a discount on getting a Youngstown kitchen, and they're really neat, yeah. This is our tool section. We divided our collection storage area into sections by how we might use them. And so paraphernalia would be buttons, pins, clothing, watches, memorabilia like that. Then we have tools and artifacts such as these. Most of our artifacts are very big and very heavy. A lot of our machinery is still in working order. We get it donated to us because it's obsolete. People have been upgrading. We have a bunch of models. We have models not only on display, but we also have a bunch in the back. And we work with the volunteers as well as people from the STEM department, many of the professors there, to get these back into working order and to interpret them so that we can put them out and you're not just looking at them, but you're actually learning about them. We also plan to work with the Excellence Training Center to show some of the old ways that the various jobs were done, and then take people over to the Excellence Center and show them the modern way. Bottles from Renner Brewery. We have embossers from the local companies. We have a ton of artwork. You wouldn't think that a steel museum would have a lot of artwork, but we do. Many of the steel workers were very artistic, as well as people, artists, local artists, utilized the landscape and the changes that the mills actually imposed upon them to create a lot of art. And if you think about it, the scale is so large inside a steel mill. Stuff from the Vindicator, not a lot, but some. That's Murray. He was the president of a union. This is in our archives library. So in addition to having the museum, we also have an archives library. We have tons and tons of oral histories on video, which we're in the process of transferring over to make digital. When we do oral history interviews now, we do them digitally so that they're captured, immediately, and we can upload them to our YouTube channel. These, though, we have beta as well as the regular video, and we're in the process of getting those transferred. But those are a wonderful wealth of knowledge that we have because in the 80s and 90s, Dr. Donna de Blasio, as well as others, interviewed a variety of people in the area about their experiences in the mills. And so we have a really nice amount of information that's firsthand, eyewitness accounts of a variety of different things that are going on, religious practices, ethnic diversity in the area, jobs, the economy, variety of different things. And so if someone is looking to get more information about those topics, all they have to do is stop by and they can tap into our oral history program.
So you have artifacts, you're a library of those videos, you have artwork. I can imagine that this stuff sort of like grows exponentially. You have to have a huge storage facility for this. How do you, you probably have a ton of it that you could have if you weren't discriminately, deciding what makes it in and what doesn't. So how big is the storage facility?
If you look at any museum, about 90% of its collection is in storage, and only about 10% is out on display. I don't know for square footage.
Okay.
I know our building's about 32,000 square feet, and maybe 8 or 10,000 of that is exhibit space, so maybe the rest.
Do you rotate out into the exhibit some of the stuff that's in storage, or is that stuff kind of just for historic sake?
Yeah, it's for historic sake. You always want to have more than one item in case something happens to it, but primarily we have the main exhibit, and then we have several spaces that we've designated and carved out in the museum so that we have temporary exhibits quite often. And that's where working with YSU and their students, especially the students who are doing practicums and museum studies, they can come in and actually use some of our artifacts to create exhibits.
This episode was brought to you by Youngstown Computer, the Valley's technology company. We appreciate the loyalty and all you have shown us over the years, and it's our promise to serve all the technology needs of the Valley. Call 330-259-7278. We have both home and business services available. Everything from repair, installations, and new equipment. You can improve your Wi-Fi and have technology serve you better. Call 330-259-7278. Or you can schedule your appointment right now on youngstowncomputer.com and look for the red Book Now button.
This is in the back. These are compact storage, which are really nice. Because they allow us to utilize as much space as possible. Martha Bishop and Susan Lowry are in charge of the Archives Library. Martha is actually retiring tomorrow. She does a fabulous job, Susan does too, in making sure that we can find all this stuff. And not only can you find it, we can't, obviously we can't put our eyes and read every single document we have, but we can categorize them so that when you're a researcher coming in and you want to find something on Youngstown General Duty Nurses Association, we can help you find that information that you want.
Take you to a series of boxes that you could then dig through. Yeah.
We do have the Youngstown Sheet and Tube Bulletin from 1919 through 1977. It's also available online. That's a wonderful resource if you want to know what the workers are doing in their personal lives, on vacation.
Awesome.
And what's really cool about that is they're not just one-dimensional workers. These are mainly men, but men and women who have outside interests. They play in the Youngstown Orchestra. They travel. They build their own homes. They are master gardeners. So really fun information. These were part of a repository for 6 counties in the state. We take government records in, and so these are some of the mortgage records that we have. We have records that date from the late 1700s through, technically they could be through today, but it just depends on when government entities are getting rid of their materials. This is the workroom in the Archives Library. It looks like it's organized chaos, and it is, because, like you said, we're getting so many items in almost on a daily basis, at least weekly. And so there's a rack-off picture that he painted. It's a self-portrait. But when we're getting stuff in, we keep the paperwork with it, but then we have to set it aside and then make sure that it gets accepted into one of our collections, and then we have to process it so that it can be useful. So we do have a backlog, and if anybody's interested, we are looking for volunteers.
And this is in the museum proper now.
Yes, this is in the museum. And what's really neat about the museum is that it tells a lot of local stories. It's applicable to the ideas of industrialization and the rise of industry and labor in many different areas, so it's transferable knowledge. You might not know about the history of Youngstown, but you can understand this because it's not only a local story, it's a national story. Artifacts that are used in making iron and steel, limestone, charcoal, and iron ore are the 3 main ingredients. We have a little bit of hands-on activities for kids because as the museum field evolves over time, hands-on activities are much more emphasized now than they had been 30 years ago. We try to amalgamate what we have to also be more inclusive and more hands-on for people. That's a stone stack furnace. We have several here in the area. We have one at Yellow Creek, and then we have one over at Mill Creek Park right next to Pioneer Pavilion. And the Heaton brothers, the two brothers who founded Niles, Ohio, actually built both of those. The steel image that you saw, the logo, many people think that's for the Steelers.
Right.
It was originally for the Institute for Iron and Steel. They eventually would sell it to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it makes sense because their fans, a lot of them would have been steel workers.
Right.
A lot of big, heavy tools.
So neat how you guys have this laid out.
Yeah, this was designed by our designers at the Ohio History Connection. And they did a wonderful job. This deals with deindustrialization, so it's the decline, and it's actually where our story ends at the museum. But we've been making the case that even though the steel mills really declined after 1977, Youngstown's still here. Mm-hmm. And so we want to tell the next phase of that story. How did we come back from that? We also have a large amount of manufacturing and steel production here in the area. We don't have a lot of steel mills, but we have places like Valorex Steel, which still produces tube and wire. We had McDonald's Steel that produced parts. There's also a rolling mill in Farrell. And then we have a lot of different companies that rely on steel to make little parts and little things that contribute to the economy. This is an overlook of our Blooming Mill pulpit. It's our largest artifact in the museum, weighs about 20 tons. Wow. In addition to the artifacts, we also have video and audio that help tell the story of steel production and steel work in the valley.
And some of those earlier films are just so cool to watch when they're doing pourings and whatever on that old black and white. So cool.
Absolutely. And our archives library has a ton of film that we have to get digitized.
Yeah.
We're working on it. We're writing grants and we're, figuring out how to do it. With the advance of technology, though, it's really nice because we found that with the oral history programs, we're able to use some transcription programs to upload and transcribe the actual interview. And that saves us a lot of human time. Hazard signs, we're getting used to seeing them on the highway now that'll say X amount of days since the last traffic incident. The mills had these for quite a long time, and they were always encouraging their workers to work safely.
Because it was a dangerous job.
It was an incredibly dangerous job. And if you think about it, states would regulate and have laws to protect the workers, but we don't see OSHA being invented until the 1970s.
Right.
Time clock, locker room, which is really neat. They were called welfare rooms, and they get ushered in as part of the welfare capitalism that comes in after the strike, after the riot in 1916. These are baskets. These would have been in the original lockers, and those came out of a mine. These would then later be lockers that would have been made by like General Fireproofing and other companies like that. So not only are we manufacturing steel, but then we're taking that steel and we're making it into other parts, and then we're using it. Yeah. This is our lower level. That's our coal exhibit. We like to emphasize the fact that if people wonder why Youngstown? Why do you have all these mills here? We had all the main ingredients that you needed to make iron and steel initially. That enabled us to be very productive. But then as time went on, we're not located on an ocean, so it takes longer and it's more expensive to ship finished product. That's a 600-pound desk that we had donated to us. It used to be at Youngstown Sheet and Tube Briar Hill Works. This is one of 3 of our models that we have in the lower level. This one is a seamless tube mill. The others are a 79-inch hot strip mill and a butt weld. They were all made in the 1930s by Youngstown sheet and tube workers. And they would take those around to different trade shows to show how product was made, as well as use them for training and just public relations. This is our image of Rosie the Riveters during World War II. The government encourages women to take over war production jobs because men are volunteering and entering into the military. And so if you, we always stop there on our guided tours to tell people about it, and we show them that you have these women, there's no safety equipment that they're wearing. Those women happen to be tin flippers, and they really don't, except for the gadgets on their hands, they don't have any protective clothing. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty clumsy, you know. I could just imagine going home every day with scratches and cuts and stuff. This is the lower level of the blooming mill pulpit. And I just can't imagine the atmosphere that people are working in at that time. It's very dark, it's noisy, it's dirty.
Hot and cold, depending on where you're at, right?
Absolutely. They actually did a study. The guys were passing out from heat exhaustion in the 1930s, and Harvard Medical sent out a team to research why that was happening. And they discovered that they were dehydrated. And so their solution in the 1930s was to get the guys to have salt tablets and to put salt in the water. And this actually did reduce the amount of passing out and getting really ill. But, you know, today when we tell that to students, they're like, what about their blood pressure? I'm like, well, today we use Gatorade.
Well, Marcelle, thank you so much for giving us probably the quickest tour that you've ever had to run through, right? And now if our viewers want to support you guys with either memberships or take a tour of the facility, give us your information on how they get a hold of you.
We're located at 151 West Wood Street. We're open Wednesday through Friday from 10 to 4, and we're open on Saturdays from 12 to 4. I know that's a limited time, but we can make special times and days available if that doesn't fit your schedule. You can give us a call at 330-941-1314. You can email us. My email is mrwilson@ysu.edu. And then we have a Gmail account at centerofindustryandlabor@gmail.com. We also have a website, so you can visit us on that as well.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.